The shooting range at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado fell silent. 5 Navy SEALs stood in a semicircle, arms crossed, watching the woman who'd just walked into their world. She was small, 5'3" at most, with raven black hair pulled tight in a ponytail and eyes the color of winter ice. She wore tactical pants and a simple black shirt, and she carried herself with the kind of stillness that made dangerous men pay attention. Master Chief Garrett Brennan stepped forward. 47 years old, face mapped with scars from 2 decades of war, he'd seen 1,000 hopefuls wash out of SEAL training. This one wouldn't last 5 minutes. "You lost, sweetheart?" His voice carried the edge of a man who'd earned every syllable. "Girl Scout camp's about 50 miles south." The woman didn't flinch. She met his gaze with those ice-blue eyes, and something flickered there. Something that made Brennan's instincts whisper a warning he chose to ignore. "My name is Sarah Kincaid," she said. Her voice was quiet, but carried perfectly in the concrete space. "I'm here to join your team." Behind Brennan, one of the SEALs laughed, a sharp, dismissive bark. Declan Sullivan, nicknamed Hawk for his sniper skills, shook his head. "This is a joke, right? Chief, tell me this is a joke." Brennan reached out and pulled the M4A1 rifle from Sarah's hands. The weapon looked oversized in his grip, a deliberate show of dominance. "This ain't a shooting range for tourists," he said. "This is where warriors train. You want to play soldier? There's a theme park in Orlando." Sarah didn't reach for the rifle. Instead, she unbuttoned the retention strap on her thigh holster and rested her hand on the Sig Sauer P226 riding there. "1 minute," she said. "Give me 1 minute." "To do what? Cry?" Sullivan's voice dripped contempt. "To prove you wrong." The range went quiet again. Brennan studied her face, looking for the crack, the moment when reality would sink in and she'd back down. He'd seen it 1,000 times. Civilians who thought they could hang with the best of the best until they actually had to step up. But Sarah Kincaid's eyes never wavered. "Here's the deal," she said. "You and 4 of your men. Sidearms only. Simunition rounds. First blood wins. You drop me, I leave and never come back. I drop all 5 of you, I'm on the team." Brennan felt his jaw tighten. The audacity of it was almost impressive. "You want to go 1 versus 5 against Navy SEALs?" "I want 63 seconds, Sarah said. "That's all I need." Something in the way she said that number, 63, made Brennan pause. 63 seconds. Why that specific number? "Chief," one of the other SEALs stepped up. Nathaniel Crowley, explosive specialist, built like a tank. "If she wants to embarrass herself, let her. 5 minutes from now, she'll be crying in the parking lot." Brennan looked back at Sarah. "You understand what you're asking? We don't pull punches. We don't go easy. This isn't a game." "I know what this is," Sarah said. "Do we have a deal?" Brennan handed the M4 to Crowley and drew his own SIG P226. Around him, 4 more SEALs moved into position, checking their weapons, exchanging glances that said this would be over in seconds. "Your funeral," Brennan said. The range master called out the rules. Standard kill house scenario. Simunition rounds, non-lethal, but they'd hurt like hell. The space was 100 feet long, filled with walls and doorways and cover points designed to simulate urban combat. First team to score 5 hits won. Sarah holstered her weapon and walked to the starting position. Her movements were economical, efficient, no wasted motion. Brennan noticed it, but pushed the observation aside. 63 seconds, the rangemaster said, setting his timer. "On your mark." The buzzer sounded. Sarah moved. Not like a civilian, not like a weekend warrior. She moved like smoke, like water, like something that belonged in the spaces between thoughts. The first seal came around a corner, hard and fast, weapon up, and Sarah was already gone. She'd anticipated his angle, read his momentum, and was behind him before his brain registered the threat. 2 shots, center mass, double tap, and he went down with blue paint spreading across his chest. 4 seconds elapsed. Brennan came next, cutting through a doorway with 2 decades of war guiding his movements. But Sarah wasn't where she should have been. She'd used a footwork pattern he'd only seen once before, a gliding sidestep that seemed to violate the laws of physics, putting her exactly where she needed to be. Her weapon came up. 3 shots, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. The Mozambique drill, executed with textbook precision. Brennan looked down at the paint marking his body armor and felt something cold settle in his gut. 12 seconds. Sullivan tried to flank her, moving silent and low. He was the best shooter on the team, a sniper who could put a round through a keyhole at 1,000 yards, but in close quarters, speed mattered more than precision. Sarah rolled, actually rolled, like something from a movie, and came up shooting. Sullivan took 2 rounds before he could acquire his target. 19 seconds. The last 2 SEALs tried to coordinate, coming at her from both sides in a pincer movement that should have been impossible to counter. But Sarah had already mapped the space, already calculated the angles. She used the doorframe as cover, drawing fire from one side while she engaged the other. The rhythm of her shooting was hypnotic. Breathe, aim, fire. Breathe, aim, fire. No hesitation, no wasted rounds. The 4th SEAL went down at 38 seconds. The 5th tried to charge her, thinking he could close the distance and overwhelm her with size and strength. But Sarah sidestepped, that same impossible gliding movement, and put 3 rounds in his back as he stumbled past. The buzzer sounded. The rangemaster stared at his timer, then looked up at the observation window, where a dozen instructors had gathered to watch. 63.0 seconds, he said. Exactly. Brennan stood slowly, wiping blue paint from his chest. Around him, his team was doing the same, and in every face he saw the same expression. Shock, giving way to something else. Something like respect. That footwork, he said quietly. The way you moved. I've only seen one person move like that. Sarah holstered her weapon. Her hands were steady, not even a tremor. Captain Jackson Kincaid, she said, United States Navy SEAL, also known as Ghost. She paused, and for the first time, Brennan saw emotion flicker across her face. My father. The name hit like a physical blow. Ghost Kincaid. Brennan had served with Ghost in Ramadi back in 2006 when the city was a meat grinder and every street corner could be your last. Ghost had saved his life twice. Once pulling him from a burning Humvee, once dragging him to cover when an IED turned the world into fire and shrapnel. Ghost Kincaid, who'd set an impossible record in this very range in 1999, clearing 5 targets in 63 seconds, using footwork nobody could replicate. Ghost Kincaid, who died in Syria in 2014, 10 years ago, executing some classified mission that would never see the light of day. Jesus Christ, Brennan breathed. Your ghost daughter. Sarah nodded once, precise as a rifle shot. The moment hung there, suspended in the cordite smell and the weight of memory. Then Brennan stepped forward and extended his hand. Your father, he said, was the finest operator I ever knew. He saved my life. I owe him everything. Sarah took his hand. Her grip was firm. Then help me, she said. Help me find out who killed him." The silence that followed was absolute. Sullivan was the first to break it. "What are you talking about? Ghost died in Syria. Combat casualty. Classified op." "That's what the official report says," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "But it's not the truth." Crowley moved closer, his expression unreadable. "That's a serious accusation, Miss Kincaid." "It's the truth." Sarah's ice-blue eyes swept across all of them. "My father was murdered, shot by someone in American uniform, and I intend to find out who." Brennan's hand dropped to his side. His face had gone pale. "How do you know this?" "Because I have proof." The training range suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Brennan looked at his team, then back at Sarah. "My office," he said. "Now." 8 months earlier. The cabin sat on the edge of the Beartooth Mountains like it had grown there. Weathered logs blending into the pine forest, smoke rising lazy from the chimney into the Montana sky. Sarah Kincaid stood on the porch in the pre-dawn cold, her breath misting, and watched the sun paint the peaks gold. This was her routine. Every morning, same time, wake at 0500, run 6 miles through the forest trails, return, clean her weapons, practice, always practice. The Remington 700 lay on the shooting bench, bipod deployed, scope calibrated for the range she'd marked out across the valley. 1,100 yards to the far ridge line where she'd mounted a series of targets. Wind was coming from the northwest at about 8 miles per hour. Temperature 42 degrees and dropping as the sun climbed. She settled behind the rifle, cheek welding to the stock, and found her breathing. Slow, controlled. The way her father had taught her when she was 7 years old, and the rifle was almost as big as she was. Breathe in, breathe out. His voice echoed from memory. Find the space between heartbeats. That's where the shot lives. The crosshairs settled on a steel plate shaped like an elk's vital zone. She waited for her heart to slow, for the tremor in her hands to settle, for the moment of perfect stillness. Squeeze. The rifle bucked. A second and a half later, the distant crack of bullet meeting steel rolled back across the valley. Perfect center. She worked the bolt, chambered another round, and shifted to the next target. The rhythm was meditative. Each shot a conversation with distance and wind and the fundamental physics of making one piece of metal strike another across impossible space. By the time the sun cleared the peaks, she'd fired 30 rounds, 28 hits. 2 misses she could blame on a wind shift she should have anticipated faster. Her father would have made all 30. Sarah cleaned the rifle with the same precision she'd used to fire it, running patches through the barrel, checking the scope mounts, ensuring every component was perfect. The Barrett M82 was next, a monster of a weapon, .50 caliber, the kind of rifle that could punch through engine blocks or end a threat from a mile away. She didn't fire it often. Ammunition was expensive, and the neighbors, few as they were, still complained about the thunder it made. But she cleaned it anyway, maintained it, kept it ready, because her father's voice lived in her head. Weapons are like promises. Keep them clean, keep them ready, and they'll keep you alive. She'd been 16 when he died, 10 years ago now, and some mornings she still woke up expecting to smell his coffee brewing, to hear his boots on the porch as he returned from his own morning run. The Army Reserve had been her attempt to follow in his footsteps. 4 years. Honorable discharge. Nothing special. She wasn't SEAL material. Women couldn't even try for that. and the jobs they'd offered her felt like playing at war rather than waging it. So she'd come home, to this cabin her father had built with his own hands, to the mountains where he'd taught her to hunt and track and shoot, to the only place that still felt like it held pieces of him. The knock on the door came at 0900. Sarah wasn't expecting visitors. Her nearest neighbor was Luther Boone, a retired weapons specialist who lived 5 miles down the mountain and mostly kept to himself. Clients for her wilderness survival instruction business called ahead. She moved to the window, staying to the side, and checked the approach. A black Ford Explorer sat in her driveway, government plates, 2 men visible through the windshield. The one getting out wore slacks and a button-down shirt, no tie, and moved with the careful precision of someone trained to assess threats. Not local law enforcement, not park rangers. Sarah opened the door, but kept the screen latched. Her hand rested casually on the Glock 19 in her waistband holster, concealed by her flannel shirt. "Help you?" The man stopped at a respectful distance. 58, maybe 60, silver touching his temples, gray eyes that had seen things and filed them away. "Sarah Kincaid?" "Depends on who's asking." "My name is Paxton Hayes, Commander, United States Navy, Naval Intelligence." He reached slowly into his jacket and produced credentials. "I was your father's commanding officer." Sarah's hand tightened on the Glock. She'd met a lot of her father's old friends over the years. None of them had shown up unannounced a decade after his death. "My father's been gone 10 years, she said. "Little late for a condolence call." "I'm not here to offer condolences," Hayes said. "I'm here because of what killed him." The wind moved through the pines. Somewhere a raven called. "My father died in Syria," Sarah said. "Classified mission. That's all they told me." "That's all they told everyone," Hayes said. "But it's not the truth." Sarah studied his face, looking for the lie, the angle, the reason this ghost from her father's past would show up now after all this time. "I've got coffee," she said finally. "You've got 5 minutes to convince me not to throw you off my property." She unlatched the screen. Inside, the cabin was Spartan. Furniture her father had built, a stone fireplace, bookshelves lined with tactical manuals and survival guides. On the mantel, a photograph. Sarah at 12, holding up a rainbow trout, her father behind her with his hand on her shoulder, both of them grinning like they'd conquered the world. Hayes stopped in front of that photo. "He talked about you all the time," he said quietly. "Showed that picture to anyone who'd look. Said you could outshoot him by the time you turned 13. 12, Sarah said. He was being generous. She poured coffee from the pot on the wood stove. Hayes took his black. "Operation Sandstorm," he said. "March 2014. That's the mission that killed your father. At least, that's what the official report says." "And what does the unofficial report say?" Hayes set down his coffee cup. "That your father was executed." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's face didn't change, but her hand moved slowly to the counter, gripping the edge, steadying herself. "I'm listening." "Operation Sandstorm was a black bag job," Hayes said. 8-man SEAL team deploying into Syria, near the Iraqi border. Official objective, gather intelligence on ISIS weapons caches. Real objective, recover stolen U.S. bioweapon prototypes that had ended up in the wrong hands. How do bioweapons end up in ISIS hands? That's the question your father asked. Hayes pulled out a tablet, called up a map. The target was here, compound in the desert. Intelligence said 3 hostiles. They hit 12. Someone had tipped off the enemy. The team got the prototypes, but it cost them, running firefight all the way to the extraction point. He swiped to another image, gun camera footage, grainy and dark. This is from Lieutenant Morrison's helmet cam. Timestamp 2347, March 15th, 2014. The footage showed chaos, muzzle flashes, men running, and then a figure, hands raised, weapon on the ground. Her father, Ghost Kincaid, surrendering to someone in American uniform. The camera angle shifted. The person receiving the surrender stepped closer. A single shot. Ghost dropped. Sarah's coffee cup hit the floor. She didn't hear it shatter. That footage, Hayes said quietly, has been classified top secret for 10 years. I had to break about 15 laws to get it. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her father's death had been the gravity well around which her entire adult life orbited. The loss that shaped everything, the sacrifice that gave meaning to the pain. But if he hadn't died heroically, if he'd been murdered, who? The word came out raw. Someone on that team, Hayes said. Your father had discovered something. Evidence that the bioweapon theft wasn't ISIS, that someone in our own government had arranged it. Sold those weapons to create a crisis they could then solve. That's insane. That's treason, Hayes corrected. And your father was about to expose it. So they killed him. Made it look like combat. Buried the truth. He pulled out a small hard drive, set it on the table. This arrived at my office 3 weeks ago. Anonymous. Inside is encrypted data, financial records, communications, proof that someone has been selling classified weapons technology for 12 years. The trail goes back to before your father died. He'd found pieces of it. That's what got him killed. Sarah picked up the drive. It was warm from Hayes's pocket. Why bring this to me? Because I spent 10 years investigating this quietly, Hayes said, and I got nowhere. Whoever Prometheus is, that's the code name we found in the communications, they're protected, high level, connected. Every time I got close, doors slammed shut. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted. So you're giving up? I'm dying, Hayes said simply. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, 6 months if I'm lucky. The admission hit like a second blow. I can't finish this alone, he continued. I need someone Prometheus won't see coming. Someone who has skin in the game. Someone Ghost trusted absolutely. I'm not a covert operative. No, Hayes met her eyes. But you're his daughter. And he trained you, didn't he? Taught you everything SEALs learn. Shooting, tactics, survival. Sarah thought of all those mornings. Her father waking her before dawn, teaching her to move through the forest like smoke, to read terrain, to make impossible shots, to survive. She'd thought he was just being a good dad, teaching his daughter skills. But maybe he'd been doing something else, preparing her. Hayes paused, studying her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Ghost told me once that you had something he'd never seen before, he said slowly. A kind of spatial awareness. Threat intuition. He said you could sense danger before it happened. Walk into a room and instantly know where every exit was, where every threat could come from. He trained me to do that. No. Hayes shook his head. Training can teach technique. This is different. This is instinct. He said you inherited it from him, but stronger. Said if you ever decided to follow in his footsteps, you'd be better than he ever was. Sarah had never heard this before. Her father had never told her she was special. Just trained her, pushed her, prepared her.
"I don't feel special," she said quietly.
Neither did Ghost, Hayes replied, until the day he realized he could do things other operators couldn't. See patterns they missed, anticipate moves before they happened. It's what made him the best, and you have it too. I've watched you since I arrived. The way you positioned yourself at the door, optimal cover, clear line of fire, escape route calculated. The way you're sitting now, back to the wall, eyes on both entrances. You don't even realize you're doing it. Sarah became suddenly aware of her positioning. He was right. She'd unconsciously chosen the safest spot in the room. There were 8 men on that mission, Hayes said. 7 are still alive. One of them killed your father. One of them is Prometheus. He pulled out photographs, laid them on the table one by one. Master Chief Garrett Brennan, SEAL Instructor Coronado, a hard face, scarred, competent. Nathaniel Crowley, Explosive Specialist, private military contractor. Built like a tank, cold eyes. Declan Sullivan, Sniper Instructor, Coronado. Lean, predatory, arrogant. Wyatt Ferguson, Combat Medic, now runs a VA hospital. Gentle face, but that meant nothing. Tobias Sterling, Communications Expert, works for a defense contractor. Smart eyes, calculating. Luther Boone, Weapons Specialist, retired. Sarah's breath caught. Boone lives 5 miles from here. I know, Hayes said. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? The final photograph. Colonel Vincent Ashford, Pentagon Liaison Defense Intelligence. Power in that face, authority, the kind of man who gave orders and expected them followed. One of these 7 is Prometheus, Hayes said. One of them murdered your father, and I need your help to find out which one. Sarah stared at the photographs. 7 faces, 7 potential killers. What's your plan? You go undercover, Hayes said. Get close to them, earn their trust, find evidence. I'll work the investigation from my end, but I'm too visible. They know I've been poking around. You, they won't suspect. I'm a wilderness guide. How am I supposed to infiltrate a SEAL team? Hayes smiled, not a happy expression. By being exactly who you are, he said. Ghost's daughter, the woman he trained from childhood, the shooter who can make impossible shots. They'll test you. You pass those tests, you're in. And if I fail, then we've lost our only chance at justice. Hayes stood. I know what I'm asking. I know the risk. But your father died trying to expose a traitor who's still out there, still selling weapons, still getting people killed. You're the only person who can finish what he started. Sarah looked at the photographs again, then at the picture on the mantel. Her 12-year-old self holding that fish, her father's hand on her shoulder. She'd spent 10 years grieving a hero. Now she had the chance to avenge a murder victim. When do we start? 3 weeks later. The SEAL training facility at Coronado was exactly as imposing as Sarah had imagined. High walls, armed guards, the best of the best moving through their routines with the casual confidence of men who'd proven themselves in the worst places on earth. Hayes had spent those 3 weeks preparing her, refreshing tactical skills she'd learned from her father, teaching her intelligence tradecraft, how to elicit information, how to build cover stories, how to read people for deception. But mostly, he taught her about the 7 suspects. Brennan, Ghost's closest friend on the team, saved his life twice, but also had access to everything. Financial records showed gambling debts 5 years ago, now resolved. Possible vulnerability. Crowley, explosives genius, quiet, methodical, worked private security for a company called Triton Defense, a name that kept appearing in the encrypted files. Suspicious. Sullivan, arrogant sniper, clashed with Ghost over tactics, known to hold grudges. Had transferred to instructor duty right after the mission, running from something? Ferguson, the medic, seemed clean, but medics saw everything on a mission, would know exactly how to make a murder look like combat casualty. Sterling, communications, access to all encrypted channels, could have warned the enemy, set up the ambush, working for a defense contractor now, pulling down 6 figures. Where'd that money come from? Boone, living 5 miles from Sarah's cabin. That couldn't be coincidence. Watching her? Waiting to see if she'd start asking questions? Ashford, Pentagon colonel. Access to the highest levels. Could bury evidence. Could protect Prometheus. Could be Prometheus. 7 suspects. 1 killer. Sarah's cover story was simple because the best cover stories were mostly truth. She was Ghost Kincaid's daughter. She'd been trained by him since childhood. She wanted to honor his memory by serving. Hayes had pulled strings to get her evaluated for a civilian marksmanship consultant position, a real job that would give her access to the base and the suspects. But first, she had to prove she belonged. Hence the moment in the shooting range, the challenge, the test. And now, standing in Brennan's office with the team assembled around her, she had to make them believe. Brennan sat behind his desk, the blue simunition paint still marking his gear, a reminder of how thoroughly Ghost's daughter had just dismantled his team. The other SEALs stood around the room. Crowley leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Sullivan paced near the window, jaw tight. Wyatt Ferguson sat in a corner chair, quiet and watchful. The room felt too small, charged with tension and unasked questions. "Your father never mentioned having a daughter," Brennan said quietly, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. "Operational security, I guess. But he talked about training someone, said he was working with the best natural shooter he'd ever seen." "I always thought he meant some recruit he'd found, some diamond in the rough he was polishing for the teams." "He meant me," Sarah said. Crowley shifted his weight. "I watched Ghost train dozens of operators over the years. Saw him push men twice your size until they broke or became something better. But I never saw him move the way you move. That footwork." He paused and something flickered in his eyes. "Ghost died before he could teach it to anyone else. Except you." "He started teaching me when I was 7, Sarah said. Said if I was going to live in his world, I needed to know how to survive in it." Sullivan stopped pacing. "Survive in it? You were a kid." "I was his daughter. He knew what that meant. The risks, the targets on our backs." Sarah's voice was steady, factual. "He made sure I could defend myself, made sure I could shoot, move, think like an operator. Just in case."
Just in case of what? Ferguson asked quietly from his corner.
Sarah met his eyes. "Just in case someone came after him. Or me. Looks like he was right to worry." The temperature in the room dropped. Brennan leaned forward. "What are you saying, Sarah?" "I'm saying my father didn't die the way the official report claims. I'm saying there are questions that don't have answers, inconsistencies that don't add up." She paused, measuring her next words carefully. "And I'm saying someone in the chain of command knows more than they're telling." Sullivan's hand moved toward his sidearm, pure instinct, before he caught himself. "You're accusing someone of lying about how Ghost died?" "I'm saying I want the truth. And I think some of you want it too."
Silence. Then Crowley spoke, his voice low and measured. Ghost was the best of us. When he died, we all felt it. Lost a brother, lost a friend, lost the one man who could walk into hell and walk back out like it was just another Tuesday. He pushed off from the wall. If there's something wrong with how he died, if there's something we missed, then yeah, I want to know. Brennan studied Sarah's face for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window overlooking the training ground, his back to the room. Ramadi, 2006, he said quietly. IED hit our convoy. I was trapped in a Humvee that was cooking off ammunition. Fire everywhere. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Ghost pulled me out. Burned his hands doing it. 3rd-degree burns. Medic wanted to medevac him. Ghost refused. Said his team needed him. Fought through the rest of that deployment with bandaged hands. He turned back to face Sarah. Got a silver star for that action. But you know what he said when they pinned it on? He said the only medal that mattered was getting his brothers home alive. Brennan's voice cracked slightly. When I heard he died in Syria, part of me died too. Because Ghost was the kind of man who made you want to be better, braver, more than you thought you could be. He walked back to his desk, looked down at the blue paint still marking his chest. You just beat 5 of us in 63 seconds. The exact time your father set the record that nobody's touched in 25 years. You move like him, shoot like him. Hell, you probably think like him. Brennan extended his hand. So if you say something's wrong with how he died, I believe you. And if you need help finding out what, then you've got it. Sarah took his hand. His grip was firm, calloused, honest. Welcome to the team, Sarah Kincaid, Brennan said. Now let's find out what really happened to Ghost. The next 2 weeks. The training was a baptism in salt water and gunpowder. Sarah trained with the SEAL instructors from 0500 until the sun set behind the Pacific. And some days, the training continued long after dark. Close quarters battle drills in the kill house, where split-second decisions meant the difference between simulated life and death. Underwater navigation exercises that left her lungs burning and her vision spotted with stars. High-altitude jumps from aircraft at 25,000 feet, the world spreading below like a tactical map drawn in lights and shadows. She excelled at all of it. Not because it came easy. Nothing about SEAL training came easy, but because her father had built the foundation years ago. Every morning run through the Montana forest had been conditioning. Every shooting session had been preparation. Every camping trip had been a lesson in reading terrain, understanding weather, surviving when comfort wasn't an option. Ghost Kincaid had been preparing his daughter for war, even if she hadn't known it at the time. Brennan watched her with eyes that saw too much. During a CQB drill on day 5, he pulled her aside after she'd cleared a room in 4 seconds flat, 2 simulated hostiles down, no shots wasted. Your father used to do that exact same thing, he said. Lead with the left shoulder, acquire target right to left. Most operators go left to right. He said most people are right-handed, Sarah replied, checking her weapon. They expect threats from their dominant side. Going the other direction buys you a quarter second. A quarter second gets you killed. Or saves your life. Brennan nodded slowly. He taught you well. But it wasn't just Brennan watching. They were all watching. The 7 suspects on Hayes' list, each one evaluating her through the lens of their own secrets. Crowley helped her with demolitions training, showing her how to calculate blast radius, how to place charges for maximum effect. His hands were steady, his explanations clear, and he never once mentioned Triton Defense or why a former SEAL was working private security for a company that kept appearing in encrypted intelligence files. Sullivan challenged her to a sniper competition on day 7. Range, 1,600 yards, target the size of a dinner plate, wind gusting 15 to 20 miles per hour from the northwest. They set up side by side on the range, Sullivan with his custom-built rifle, Sarah with a Marine Corps M40A6 she'd never fired before. "Never shot this platform?" Sullivan asked, adjusting his scope. "First time." "Then you're going to embarrass yourself, Kincaid." Sarah settled behind the rifle. The M40A6 was heavier than her Remington 700, the balance point slightly forward. But a rifle was a rifle. The bullet didn't care what platform sent it downrange. She calculated windage, elevation, the Coriolis effect at this distance, adjusted the scope, found her natural point of aim. Sullivan fired first. Spotter called it 2 inches left, 1 inch low. Good shot. Excellent shot, actually. Sarah waited for the wind to settle into a pattern, felt her pulse slow, found the rhythm, squeezed. The bullet took 4 seconds to cross the distance, time enough to doubt, to second guess, to wonder if she'd missed some variable in the equation. The spotter's voice crackled over the radio. "Dead center. Perfect hit." Sullivan turned his head slowly to look at her. "Your father could make that shot," he said. "I didn't think anyone else could. He made harder shots than that." "I know. I watched him do it." Something shifted in Sullivan's eyes. Syria. Operation Sandstorm. He took out 3 hostiles from 1,900 yards in a sandstorm. Impossible conditions. Impossible shots. He made all 3. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but her heart was hammering. "You were there?" "I was his spotter," Sullivan said quietly. "I saw everything that happened that night." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. "Everything?" Sarah asked. Sullivan stood, slinging his rifle. "Your father was the best I ever worked with. His death was a waste, a goddamn waste." He walked away before Sarah could ask what he meant. That night, she met Hayes at a diner 30 miles from the base. Protocol dictated they couldn't be seen together, so they sat in separate booths, Hayes nursing coffee, Sarah picking at a burger she couldn't taste. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hayes's burner. "Sullivan knows something. Careful." She texted back. "All 7 know something. Question is what?" Hayes's reply took longer. "Found connection. Triton Defense paid $2.4 million to offshore account March 14th, 2014. Day before mission." Sarah's blood went cold. March 14th. The day before her father died. Someone had been paid right before Operation Sandstorm. She texted, "Account owner?" Hayes. "Encrypted. Working on it." But payment came from Triton, Crowley's current employer. Sarah glanced at her phone's reflection in the diner window. Outside, the California night was orange with streetlights. Inside, her world was narrowing to a single question. Which one of the 7 had sold out her father for $2.4 million? Her phone buzzed again. Not Hayes this time. Unknown number. The message was simple. "You have your father's eyes, and his curiosity. Stop now or share his grave." Attached was a photograph, her cabin in Montana, taken from the tree line. Recent. She could see her truck in the driveway, the woodpile she'd stacked last week. They knew where she lived. They were watching. Sarah's hand didn't shake as she deleted the message, but something cold and sharp settled into her chest. Fear, yes, but also clarity. Whoever Prometheus was, she was getting close.
The next morning, she went for her usual run on the beach before sunrise. 5 miles, hard sand, pushing her pace until her lungs burned. The ocean was dark and restless, waves crashing in rhythms older than memory. She didn't see the tail until mile 3. Dark sedan, crawling along the coast road, keeping pace with her. Windows tinted, no plates visible in the pre-dawn light. Sarah kept running, but her hand dropped to the small of her back, where she'd tucked a compact Glock 43. Not regulation for a morning run, but after last night's message, she wasn't taking chances. The sedan accelerated, pulled ahead, stopped at a beach access point. 2 men got out, casual clothes, but the way they moved, weight forward, hands ready, screamed professional. Sarah slowed to a walk, breathing hard, playing the exhausted jogger. But her mind was calculating distances, angles, cover. 30 yards to the nearest lifeguard station, 20 yards to the parking lot. No other civilians in sight. The first man smiled, too friendly. "Morning, you're Sarah Kincaid, right?" She stopped 15 feet away. "Do I know you?" "Not yet, but we know you." The smile didn't reach his eyes. "Know you've been asking questions, poking around where you shouldn't." The second man circled left, flanking her. Standard intimidation tactic. "I'm just here for training," Sarah said. "That's the thing." The first man took a step closer. "We think you're here for something else, and we're here to give you a friendly warning. Walk away. Go back to Montana. Forget about your father." "And if I don't?" "Then you'll have an accident. Tragic training incident. Happens all the time." Sarah's hand moved to her waistband, not drawing yet, just ready. "Who sent you?" "Does it matter?" The man shrugged. "The message is simple. Leave or die." They were 10 feet away now, close enough that Sarah could see the bulges under their jackets. Armed, confident, too confident. "My father taught me something," Sarah said quietly. "He said when someone threatens you, they're either serious or bluffing. You tell which by how they stand." "Yeah," the first man smirked. "And how are we standing?" "Wrong." Sarah moved, not away, toward. The first man's brain needed a quarter second to process the unexpected direction. In that quarter second, Sarah closed the distance, drove her elbow into his solar plexus, and used his forward momentum to throw him over her hip. He hit the sand hard. Air exploded from his lungs. The second man drew his weapon. Sarah's Glock was already out, pointed at his center mass. 12 feet. Impossible to miss. "Drop it," she said. His eyes went wide. He'd expected a scared civilian, got a trained operator instead. "Drop it, or I drop you." He hesitated. Fatal mistake in a real gunfight. But this wasn't that. Not yet. He lowered his weapon, set it in the sand. "Smart," Sarah said. "Now kick it away." He complied. The first man was struggling to breathe, curled on his side. Sarah kept her weapon trained on the second. "Tell whoever sent you that I'm not leaving. Tell them if they want me gone, they'll have to do better than 2 rent-a-thugs with attitude problems." She backed toward the lifeguard station, weapon still up, until she had cover. Then she pulled her phone, dialed 911, and reported 2 armed men threatening civilians on the beach. By the time the police arrived, the sedan was gone. The 2 men had vanished. But they'd left their weapon behind. Sarah stayed long enough to give a statement. Woman jogging,
2 men with a gun. She defended herself. They fled, then headed back to base. Hayes called within the hour. "What the hell happened?" She told him. Silence on the other end. Then, "They're escalating. That means you're getting close to something. Or they're trying to scare me off before I find anything. Sarah, these people killed your father. If they're sending threats, next time they'll send bullets. Let them." Her voice was harder than she intended. "I'm not backing down." Your father said the same thing. Look where it got him. The words stung because they were true. "So what do you want me to do?" Sarah asked. "Run? Hide? Let them win?" "I want you alive." "I want justice." Hayes sighed. "There's a difference between justice and revenge." "Not from where I'm standing." Another silence. Then Hayes's voice changed, became more formal. Commander, giving orders. "I've got new intel. Triton Defense Headquarters, Phoenix. They've got a server with financial records. The real ones, not the sanitized versions they show auditors. If we can access that server, we can track the money. Find out who received that $2.4 million payment." "You want to break into a defense contractor's headquarters?" "I want to find your father's killer," Hayes said. "This is how we do it." Sarah thought about the 2 men on the beach, about the photograph of her cabin, about her father, hands raised, surrendering to someone in American uniform before the fatal shot. "When?" "I'm putting a team together. You, me, and one other person I trust." "Who?" "Nathaniel Crowley." Sarah's grip on the phone tightened. "Crowley works for Triton Defense." "Exactly, which is why I confronted him last night." "You what?" Showed him the evidence, the offshore payment, the timeline, told him I knew about his connection to Triton. Hayes paused. "He's not Prometheus, Sarah. He's investigating too." "How do you know?" "Because he's been hired by the Senate Armed Services Committee to probe corruption in defense contracts. Triton is his target. He's been undercover there for 8 months. Sarah's mind raced. If Crowley was investigating Triton, and Triton had paid someone $2.4 million the day before her father died. "Triton is the money source," she said slowly. "Prometheus is somewhere in the chain, either inside Triton or receiving payments from them." "That's our theory," Hayes confirmed. "Crowley has access to the building. He can get us in. But we need your skills. Your father trained you in infiltration tactics, right?" "Some." "Then it's time to use them." Sarah looked at herself in the mirror, saw her father's eyes looking back. "Set it up," she said. The briefing happened in a safe house in San Diego, anonymous apartment in a complex full of Navy families. Hayes had rented it under a false name. Crowley arrived first, carrying a duffel bag full of equipment. He nodded to Sarah. "Heard about the beach. You okay?" "I'm fine." "You broke that guy's ribs. EMTS took him to the hospital." "Should have sent better people." Crowley smiled slightly. "Your father would have said the same thing." Hayes spread blueprints across the table. Triton Defense Headquarters, 15 floors, heavy security. "Target is the 14th floor," he said. "Server room. Air-gapped system. No external network access. We need physical access to download the data." "How heavy is security?" Sarah asked. 12 armed guards, rotating shifts, biometric access on all floors above ground level, cameras every 20 feet, motion sensors after hours. Crowley pointed to the roof. "But there's a maintenance access here. HVAC system. I can get us through there. And once we're in, I bypass the biometrics. We've got an 8-minute window while the system cycles through its backup protocol. I can spoof it, but only for 8 minutes. 8 minutes to reach the 14th floor, access the server, download everything, and extract, Hayes said. Tight, but doable. Sarah studied the blueprints. Her father had taught her to read buildings like books. Look for the places people don't watch, the gaps in perception. Security rotates every 4 hours, she said. What time's the shift change? 0200. That's when we go. Guards are either tired from the old shift or not fully alert on the new one. 15-minute window of reduced effectiveness. Crowley looked impressed. Ghost taught you that? He taught me a lot of things. They went over the plan 12 times, each person's role, contingencies, escape routes. Hayes would provide overwatch from a position across the street, monitoring police frequencies and security communications. Crowley and Sarah would make the insertion. One thing, Crowley said, if this goes wrong, if we get caught, I can't protect you. Triton has connections everywhere. Pentagon, Congress, even some federal judges. Then we don't get caught, Sarah said. They launched at 0130, dark clothes, tactical gear, suppressed weapons, just in case. Hayes dropped them 3 blocks from the target, then drove to his overwatch position. Sarah and Crowley approached from the south, using shadow and patience. The building loomed against the Phoenix night, glass and steel reflecting city lights. Cameras on the south corner, Crowley whispered. Blind spot is 12 feet wide. We've got 20 seconds to cross. They waited for a security patrol to pass, then moved. Fast and low, Sarah following Crowley's path exactly. They reached the wall, pressed against it. Above, the maintenance ladder disappeared into darkness. Crowley went first. Sarah followed, climbing 40 feet to the roof access. Training took over, her body finding holds, moving with efficiency born from all those times her father had made her climb rock faces in Montana. On the roof, the city spread out like a circuit board. Lights and darkness. Life and secrets. The HVAC access was a metal grate, 2 feet square. Crowley had the tools to remove it in 90 seconds. They dropped into the ventilation system, crawling through sheet metal tunnels that amplified every sound. Sarah's phone buzzed. Text from Hayes. Security sweep in progress. Hold position. They froze. Below, through the ventilation grill, Sarah could see a guard walking the 14th floor hallway, flashlight sweeping. He paused directly below them. Sarah didn't breathe. The guard moved on. Hayes. Clear. Move now. Crowley removed the internal grill. They dropped into a supply closet. Empty. Dark. Biometrics in 3, Crowley whispered, checking his watch. 2. 1. He pulled out a small device, connected it to the door's access panel. Code scrolled across the screen. The lock clicked. 8 minutes, he said, starting now. They moved through the corridor like ghosts. Appropriate, Sarah thought, given who trained her. Server room was at the end of the hall. Another biometric lock. Crowley bypassed it in 40 seconds. Inside, the servers hummed. Banks of equipment, blinking lights. The digital heart of a company built on secrets. Crowley went to the main terminal. Sarah stood guard by the door, weapon ready. Downloading, Crowley said. This is going to take 6 minutes. 6 minutes. They'd already used 2. Sarah watched the hallway. Nothing moved. But her instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. Her phone buzzed. Hayes. Multiple vehicles arriving. Armed personnel. Get out now. Sarah turned. We've got company. Downloads at 30%. I need 4 more minutes. We don't have 4 minutes. Crowley's jaw set. Then I'll buy us time. You stay here, finish the download. That's not... Alarms shrieked to life. Red lights flashed. They know we're here, Crowley said. He pulled his weapon. When the download hits 100%, pull the drive and run. North stairwell. I'll meet you at the extraction point. Crowley! But he was already gone, moving toward the elevators, drawing the security response toward himself. Sarah heard shouting, footsteps pounding. The download crept to 50%. Gunfire erupted, not suppressed, full automatic. Crowley was in contact. Sarah wanted to help him, wanted to fight, but the mission was the download, the evidence. Her father's killer. 60%. More gunfire, closer now, 70%. Her phone. Hayes, Crowley pinned down. Brennan en route with backup, hold position. Brennan. How did Brennan know? 80%. The door to the server room crashed open. 4 security contractors, body armor, assault rifles. They saw Sarah. Weapons came up. She dove behind a server rack as rounds shredded the air where she'd been standing. The noise was deafening in the enclosed space. Metal sparked, equipment exploded. Sarah returned fire. Controlled bursts, 2 rounds per target. 1 contractor went down. Another ducked behind cover. 90%. She had to hold them off. Had to give the download time to finish. Flashbang grenade bounced into the room. Sarah turned away, shut her eyes, opened her mouth. Her father's teaching. Reduce the impact. The world turned white and silent. She couldn't hear, couldn't see, but she could move. Training took over. She rolled left, came up shooting, saw muzzle flashes, aimed at them, fired. A contractor stumbled, fell. Vision clearing, ears ringing. The terminal beeped. 100%. But Sarah couldn't just grab it and run. She stared at the screen, and her blood turned to ice. The final transaction record was still displayed. March 14th, 2014. $2.4 million. Triton Defense Systems, to account number TK-7734-offshore. March 14th, the day before her father died. Someone had been paid the day before Operation Sandstorm, paid before the mission even launched. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was premeditated murder. Sarah yanked the drive free, the truth burning in her mind even as bullets tore the air around her. She was trapped. 3 contractors between her and the exit. No way out. Then the door behind the contractors exploded inward. Brennan came through like a freight train. 2 more SEALs with him, Sullivan and Ferguson. They hit the contractors with overwhelming force. CQB at its finest. In 15 seconds, it was over. Brennan grabbed Sarah's arm. We need to move, now. Crowley, already extracted, come on. They ran. Down the north stairwell, 14 floors at speed, legs burning. Behind them, more security poured in. Ahead, the ground floor exit. They burst out into the Phoenix night. Black SUV waiting, Hayes behind the wheel. Everyone piled in. Hayes punched the accelerator. In the back seat, Sarah clutched the drive, her mind still processing what she'd seen. March 14th, the day before. Prometheus had planned her father's murder in advance. How did you know? Sarah asked Brennan as the SUV screamed through Phoenix streets. Hayes taking corners like he was still dodging rockets in Baghdad. Brennan reloaded his weapon without looking down. Pure muscle memory. Hayes called me, said you were walking into a trap. Sarah turned to Hayes in the front seat. You thought it was a trap? I thought it might be. Hayes's eyes never left the road. Crowley's been undercover for 8 months. If Prometheus is inside Triton, they could have burned him already. Could have been feeding him false intelligence, waiting to see who he'd bring. Then why didn't you abort? Sarah's voice was sharp. Because we needed that data. Because every other avenue's been a dead end. Hayes glanced at her in the rearview mirror. And because I gambled that Prometheus wouldn't expect us to have backup. Sullivan spoke up from the third row. Brennan got the call and came to me in Ferguson. Didn't ask questions, just said Ghost's daughter needed extraction. He paused. Guess that 63-second performance bought you some loyalty. Where's Crowley? Sarah asked. Right behind us, Ferguson said, pointing to headlights in the rear window. Another SUV, keeping pace. They drove for 40 minutes, switching vehicles twice, running counter-surveillance routes until Hayes was satisfied they weren't being followed. Finally pulled into an industrial park in Tempe, rolled into an abandoned warehouse. Crowley's vehicle arrived 90 seconds later. He climbed out, bleeding from a cut on his forehead, vest torn, but moving under his own power. You good? Brennan asked. 3 cracked ribs, possible concussion, and I'm pretty sure I left half my hearing in that stairwell. Crowley grinned. But I got out, so yeah, I'm good. They secured the warehouse, Sullivan on overwatch, Ferguson setting up a perimeter alarm system, then gathered around a folding table where Hayes set up his laptop. Sarah handed him the drive. You got it all? He asked. 97% before we had to pull out. Hayes connected the drive. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Data scrolled past. Financial records, transaction logs, 12 years of Triton Defense's real operations, the ones that never made it into congressional testimony. Sarah watched the numbers flow. Millions, tens of millions, payments to offshore accounts, shell companies, numbered banks in countries without extradition treaties. But she kept coming back to one date, March 14th, 2014, the day before her father died. Hayes worked for an hour, cross-referencing, building spreadsheets, following the money through layers of obfuscation. Brennan brought coffee from a 24-hour gas station. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were Hayes's typing and the distant hum of Phoenix traffic. Finally, Hayes stopped. Got it, he said quietly. Everyone moved closer. Hayes pulled up the offshore account that had received $2.4 million on March 14th. Routing numbers, transfer records, and finally, buried in encrypted metadata, the beneficial owner. The room went dead silent. Sarah stared at the name on the screen, her world tilted sideways. The account belonged to Colonel Vincent Ashford, Pentagon liaison, Defense Intelligence, one of the 7 men on Operation Sandstorm, the man who had filed Ghost Kincaid's death report, the man who had recommended closing the investigation, the man who had classified the helmet cam footage. Prometheus. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. 10 years. 10 years of grieving, of wondering, of carrying the weight of her father's death. And now she had a name. Where is he? Her voice was ice. Hayes checked his intelligence databases. Pentagon, but he's got a full security detail. We can't just... Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She knew what it would be before she opened it. Another threat, another warning. But it was worse. The message read, You found my name. Congratulations, Miss Kincaid. Your father found it too. I gave him a choice, walk away or die. He chose poorly. I'm offering you the same choice.
But let's make it interesting. You have 12 hours to decide. After that, everyone who helped you tonight dies, starting with Commander Hayes. Attached was a photo, this warehouse, taken from outside, minutes ago. They were already here. Brennan moved to the window, saw shadows moving in the darkness beyond the fence line. Contact, he said quietly. Multiple hostiles were surrounded. Hayes grabbed his weapon. How many? At least 20. Could be more. Sullivan was already on the radio, trying to call for backup. He shook his head. Jammed. They're blocking all frequencies. Sarah looked at the message again, at Ashford's words, the same choice he'd given her father. Walk away or die. Ghost had chosen to fight, and they'd killed him for it. Sarah's phone rang. Same unknown number. She answered, putting it on speaker. Colonel Vincent Ashford's voice was smooth, educated, the voice of a man accustomed to power. Miss Kincaid, I must say, you're proving as difficult to kill as your father was. Let's talk face to face, Sarah said. Just you and me. I don't think so. I've learned from my mistakes. Your father thought he could negotiate with me too. Thought he could convince me to surrender, to confess. He was naive, idealistic. Ashford paused. It got him killed. You shot an unarmed man. I shot a threat to national security. Ashford's tone was matter-of-fact. Your father discovered my operation. He was going to expose years of carefully cultivated relationships, billions of dollars in revenue streams that keep the defense industry strong, keep America dominant. I did what was necessary. You sold weapons to terrorists. I sold weapons to maintain American strategic interests. His voice took on a professorial quality, like he was lecturing a slow student. We need enemies, Miss Kincaid. After the Cold War ended, defense spending dropped 40%. Thousands of jobs lost. Communities devastated. I saw what that did to this country. So I created sustainable conflict, controlled threats, enemies we could fight and defeat again and again, keeping the machine running. Sarah felt sick. You got people killed. American soldiers, civilians. Acceptable losses in service of the greater good. No hesitation, no remorse. Your father couldn't see the bigger picture. He thought in terms of right and wrong, black and white. The real world is gray, Miss Kincaid. The real world requires hard men making hard choices. You're not a hard man, Sarah said. You're a coward who murders anyone who threatens your bank account. Silence on the line. When Ashford spoke again, the professorial tone was gone, pure cold. You have spirit, I'll give you that. Just like Ghost. He fought too, right up until the end. Told me I'd never get away with it, that the truth would come out. Ashford laughed. But I did get away with it. For 10 years. And I'll get away with killing you too. Come and try. I don't have to come to you. The sound of vehicle doors closing in the background. I'm already there. 23 contractors surrounding your position. You're outgunned, outmanned, and out of time. Last chance. Walk out, hands up, leave the drive, and I'll let you live. Stay inside, and I turn that warehouse into your tomb. Sarah looked at her team. Brennan, Sullivan, Ferguson, Crowley, Hayes. 5 operators against 23. The math wasn't good. But her father had faced worse odds, had chosen to fight rather than surrender.
She'd spent 10 years living in his shadow. Time to step into his light. "You want the drive?" Sarah said. "Come and take it." She hung up. Brennan was already moving, checking ammunition, assessing their defensive position. "This is a kill box. No cover, no exits. They've got us locked down." "Then we make them pay for every foot," Sarah said. Hayes put a hand on her shoulder.
Sarah, this is my fight. This stopped being your fight the moment Ashford killed my father. Sarah's voice was steel. We hold this position, we fight, and we make damn sure that if we go down, we take enough of them that the truth can't be buried. Sullivan checked his rifle. Your father gave a speech like that once. Fallujah, 2004. We were pinned down, surrounded, low on ammunition. Ghost said we were going to fight our way out or die trying. Made it sound like the easiest choice in the world. Did you make it out? Sarah asked. Obviously, Sullivan smiled grimly. But it cost us. 3 wounded. Ghost took a round through the shoulder, kept fighting anyway, carried 2 men to the extraction point with 1 working arm. Then we've got a standard to live up to. Sarah moved to the window. Outside, the shadows were taking positions. Professional, coordinated. This wasn't going to be a frontal assault. They were setting up fields of fire, cutting off escape routes, preparing to methodically destroy the warehouse and everyone in it. Crowley was rigging improvised explosives from materials in the warehouse, fuel cans, fertilizer, anything combustible. I can make it expensive for them, buy us time. Time for what? Ferguson asked quietly. We're jammed, can't call for help. Even if we could, who'd come? Ashford owns half the Pentagon. Sarah pulled out the drive, looked at it. Everything her father had died to expose, everything Ashford had killed to protect. We don't need the cavalry, she said. We need to get this drive to someone who can use it. Hayes understood immediately. The FBI, Special Agent Maxwell Drake. He's been investigating Ashford independently. If we can get this data to him... How? Brennan cut in. We're surrounded. The moment we move, they light us up. Sarah thought about her father's training. All those lessons in the Montana wilderness. Survival. Evasion. Unconventional warfare. They're expecting us to fight, she said slowly. Expecting us to defend this position. What if we don't? You want to surrender? Sullivan looked shocked. I want to disappear. Sarah turned to Crowley. Those explosives, can you make it look like we went down fighting? Make them think they got us? Crowley caught on. Set charges throughout the building. Trigger them remotely. Create enough fire and smoke that they can't verify kills immediately. By the time they realize we're not here, we're gone. Gone where? Ferguson asked. The sewer system, Sarah said, pointing to a drainage grate in the warehouse floor. These industrial parks all connect to the main line. Runs for miles underground. If we can reach it, we come up somewhere away from the cordon, Hayes finished. Sarah, that's insane. That's the kind of plan Ghost would come up with. Did it work when he did it? Hayes smiled, despite everything. Every damn time. They had 15 minutes before Ashford's deadline. They used every second. Crowley placed charges. Hayes uploaded a copy of the drive to an encrypted cloud server. Backup in case they didn't make it. Ferguson packed medical supplies. Sullivan prepared covering fire for their initial movement. Brennan worked on the drainage grate with a crowbar. The metal was rusted, but it came free. Below, darkness and the smell of stagnant water. It's a 10-foot drop, he said. Then we're crawling through wastewater for at least half a mile before we reach a larger junction. Beats getting shot, Sarah said. Her phone buzzed. Ashford. 5 minutes. Then we're coming in. Sarah texted back. See you in hell. She muted the phone, looked at her team. Once we're in the sewer, no lights unless absolutely necessary. Stay close. Move quiet. If we get separated, rally point is the FBI field office. Give the drive to Agent Drake. Tell him everything. What about you? Hayes asked.
I'll be right behind you. She handed the drive to Brennan. You get this out, no matter what. Brennan took it. Your father trusted me with his life. I won't fail his daughter. One by one, they dropped through the grate. Ferguson first, medical bag strapped to his back. Then Sullivan. Then Hayes, moving slower, the cancer taking its toll. Crowley was last, holding the detonator. I'll trigger the charges 60 seconds after I'm down. That should give us enough time to get clear of the initial blast zone. Only Sarah and Brennan remained above ground. Ladies first, Brennan said. I need to make sure Ashford commits his forces, Sarah replied. Needs to think we're still here fighting. You go, I'll follow. Brennan hesitated, then nodded, dropped through the grate. Sarah was alone. She moved to the window, could see the contractors tightening their perimeter. 23 men, all armed, all professional, all here to kill her. Her phone rang. Ashford again, she answered. Time's up, Miss Kincaid. Then come and get me. She fired 3 rounds through the window. Aiming high, not trying to hit anyone, just making noise, making them think she was still fighting. The contractors returned fire immediately, hundreds of rounds tearing through the warehouse walls. The building shuddered under the impact. Sarah dropped to the floor, crawled toward the grate. Crowley's voice crackled over the tactical radio they'd switched to. Sarah, move, now! She reached the grate, swung her legs over. More gunfire. An RPG hit the far wall. The explosion knocked her sideways. She dropped through the grate, fell 10 feet, hit water that was shockingly cold and smelled like death. Hands grabbed her, Brennan, pulling her to her feet. Go, he shouted. They ran, bent double in the confined space, water splashing. Darkness absolute except for the faint glow of Brennan's IR marker ahead. Behind them, Crowley's charges detonated. The warehouse exploded. A fireball climbed into the Phoenix night. The shockwave traveled through the sewer system, a wall of pressure that picked Sarah up and threw her forward. She hit water again, went under, surfaced, gasping. Hands found her in the darkness. Sullivan. Keep moving. They crawled through hell. The sewer system was a maze of pipes and junction points. Water ranged from ankle deep to chest deep. Things floated past in the darkness that Sarah didn't want to think about. Time lost meaning. Could have been 20 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. Finally, Hayes called a halt. Junction point ahead. This connects to the main line. From there, we can access surface exits. They gathered in a wider chamber where 5 pipes converged. Emergency lighting provided dim illumination. Everyone was soaked, exhausted, but alive. Sound off, Brennan ordered. One by one. Ferguson, good. Sullivan, good. Crowley, good. Hayes, good. Sarah, good. Brennan pulled out the drive, still sealed in its waterproof case, still intact. We did it, he said quietly. We're clear. Above, they could hear sirens, fire trucks, police, responding to the explosion. Ashford will know we're gone soon, Hayes said. We need to move fast. Get this drive to Drake before... His phone rang. Not his burner, his official Navy phone. He checked the caller ID. His face went pale. "It's Admiral Carver, my commanding officer." "Don't answer it," Sarah said. "If I don't, he'll know something's wrong." Hayes answered, putting it on speaker. "Commander Hayes?" "Paxton." Admiral Carver's voice was tight. "Where are you?" "San Diego, sir. Personal time." "Don't lie to me. I know about Phoenix. I know about Triton Defense. And I know you've been running an unauthorized investigation." Hayes exchanged glances with Sarah. "Sir, I can explain. You're working with Ghost Kincaid's daughter. You broke into a defense contractor's headquarters.
You stole classified financial data. Carver's voice was ice. "Paxton, what the hell were you thinking?" "I was thinking that someone murdered one of my operators and got away with it for 10 years. Silence. Then, "Vincent Ashford is a decorated colonel, a patriot. And you're accusing him of treason based on what? Stolen data? Conspiracy theories?" "Based on evidence, sir. Financial records showing he received $2.4 million the day before Operation Sandstorm. Based on classified footage showing Ghost Kincaid was executed, not killed in combat." Another pause. Longer this time. "What footage?" "Helmet cam from the mission. It shows—" "That footage doesn't exist," Carver cut him off. "It was destroyed. Classified above top secret, then destroyed. How do you have it?" Hayes didn't answer. Carver's voice dropped. "Who else knows about this?" "Just my team." "Good. Then here's what's going to happen. You're going to destroy that data. You're going to send Sarah Kincaid home. And you're going to close this investigation immediately." "Sir, with respect, that's not a request, Commander. That's an order." Carver's tone shifted. Not angry now. Something worse. Tired. Resigned. "Paxton, you're dying. Cancer, right? 6 months? Maybe less? How did you—" "I know everything about my officers, and I know you want to go out doing the right thing, being the hero. But this isn't the right fight. Ashford is protected by people you can't touch, people I can't touch. You go after him, you'll destroy yourself and everyone around you." Sarah grabbed the phone from Hayes. "Admiral Carver, this is Sarah Kincaid. My father was murdered. I have proof, and I'm not walking away." Silence. Then Carver sighed. "Miss Kincaid, I served with your father. He was a good man. The best, actually. And I'm sorry for what happened to him. But some things are bigger than one man. Bigger than justice." "What's bigger than justice?" "National security. The defense of this country. The jobs and livelihoods of millions of Americans who depend on the defense industry." Carver's voice was heavy. "Ashford runs a network that's been operating for 20 years. It's woven into the fabric of our military-industrial complex. You can't tear it out without bringing the whole thing down." "Then maybe it needs to come down," Sarah said. "You have no idea what you're saying. The chaos that would cause. The damage." Carver paused. "Ghost thought the same way. That's why he's dead. Don't make his mistake." Sarah looked at her team. At Brennan, who'd served with her father. At Hayes, who was dying but still fighting. At Sullivan, Crowley, Ferguson, men who'd risked everything tonight. "My father's mistake," she said slowly, "was trusting the chain of command. Trusting that if he reported treason, someone would act. He was wrong. The system protected the traitor, protected Ashford." "The system protects America," Carver replied. "Sometimes that means making hard choices." "It means being a coward," Sarah said. "Ashford killed my father, sold weapons that got Americans killed. And you're protecting him because what? It's convenient? Because the alternative is messy?
Because the alternative is worse. Carver's voice hardened. Stand down, Miss Kincaid. That's my final word. Stand down, or I'll have you arrested for theft, trespassing, destruction of property, and about 15 other charges. You'll spend the rest of your life in federal prison. Sarah hung up, looked at Brennan. The FBI field office. How far? 3 miles. Brennan checked his weapon. But Carver just showed his hand. He's part of it. The network. He'll warn Ashford that we're coming. Then we don't go to the FBI, Hayes said quietly. We go to the press. The press? Sullivan looked skeptical. We show up covered in sewer water, claiming a Pentagon colonel is running a treason network. They'll laugh us out of the building.
Not if we have proof. Sarah held up the drive. Financial records, transaction logs, names, dates, amounts. This is everything. Everything Ashford's network has done for 20 years. We need more than data, Ferguson said. We need a confession. Someone on the record, someone credible. Hayes met Sarah's eyes. I'll do it. I'll testify. Full disclosure. Everything I know. Everything I've found. They'll destroy you, Brennan said. Court-martial, prison time. I'm dying anyway, Hayes smiled sadly. At least this way it means something. Sarah shook her head. We need Ashford, his confession, him admitting everything. How? Crowley asked. He's not going to just... He'll come if we give him a reason, Sarah said. She was thinking fast now, pieces falling into place. He's arrogant, thinks he's won, thinks we're dead in that warehouse. What if we let him know we're alive? What if we challenge him? To what? Sullivan asked. To finish what he started.
Sarah pulled out her phone. He gave my father a choice. Walk away or die. My father chose to fight. I choose the same. But this time, it's on our terms, our ground, and we record everything. Brennan understood. You want to bait him into a confession. I want him to admit he killed Ghost, on camera, on the record. Then we release it everywhere. Press, Congress, social media, make it impossible to bury. He's not stupid enough to fall for that, Ferguson said. No, Sarah agreed, but he's arrogant enough. He thinks we're done, thinks we're beaten. When we pop up alive, he'll come. Because men like Ashford can't stand leaving loose ends, can't stand being defied. Hayes was nodding slowly. Your father did something similar once. Lured an insurgent leader into a trap by making him angry, making him reckless. It worked. Where? Brennan asked. Where do we set this up? Sarah thought about it. Needed somewhere public enough that Ashford couldn't just disappear them, but isolated enough to control the terrain. Ghost's grave, she said quietly. Arlington National Cemetery. My father's buried there, or at least there's a marker there. It's federal property, secure, but public record. Ashford can't just send contractors in. It would be too visible. He'll bring a team anyway, Sullivan said. Just smaller, more discreet. Then so do we. Sarah looked at Brennan. Can you get us into Arlington? I know people. Yeah, I can get us in. Then here's the play. Sarah's voice was steady, channeling 10 years of grief into cold calculation. We contact Ashford. Tell him we survived. Tell him we have the drive. Tell him, if he wants it back, he meets us at Ghost's grave. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone, or we release everything to the press. He won't come alone, Hayes said. I know, but we'll be ready. We set up cameras, audio. Everything he says gets recorded,
gets broadcast live.
He confesses to killing Ghost. It goes out to the world in real time. That's insane, Ferguson said. That's the plan, Sarah replied. They emerged from the sewer system 20 minutes later, climbing out through a storm drain in a residential neighborhood. An elderly woman watering her garden dropped her hose when 5 people covered in filth emerged from the ground. Don't ask, Brennan told her. They stole clothes from a laundromat, left cash to pay for them, and found a motel on the outskirts of Phoenix, paid cash, no names. The clerk took one look at them and wisely asked no questions. In the room, Hayes set up his laptop, started uploading the drive contents to multiple encrypted servers, backup upon backup. Insurance. Sarah showered, burning hot water, washing away the sewer stench, but not the memories, not the image of her father, hands raised, being executed. When she emerged, Brennan was on the phone. Quiet conversation. He hung up, looked at her. Arlington's set. I've got a contact in cemetery security. He'll give us access after hours. Midnight tomorrow, like you said. Good. Sarah. Brennan's voice was gentle. You know this is probably a one-way trip, right? Even if we expose Ashford, his network will come after us. We'll be looking over our shoulders for the rest of our lives, however long that is. I know. Your father wouldn't want you to throw your life away for revenge. This isn't revenge, Sarah met his eyes. It's finishing what he started, honoring his memory, making sure he didn't die for nothing. Brennan nodded slowly. He'd be proud of you. We'll see. Sarah pulled out her phone, composed a message to the unknown number that had been threatening her. Colonel Ashford, we survived. We have the drive. We have everything. If you want it back, come get it. Arlington National Cemetery, my father's grave. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone, or I release it all to the press. Your choice. Walk away or die. Just like you told Ghost, Sarah Kincaid. She hit send. The response came 30 seconds later. You have your father's courage and his stupidity. See you at midnight, Ashford. Sarah showed the message to the team. It's done, she said. Tomorrow night, this ends. Hayes looked up from his laptop. I've sent copies of the drive to every major news organization, with instructions, if I don't check in every 12 hours, auto-release everything. Dead man's switch, Sullivan said approvingly. Quite literally, Hayes coughed, a wet sound that spoke of dying lungs. If Ashford kills us, the truth still comes out. He knows that now. The question is whether he'll risk it. He'll come, Sarah said with certainty. Men like him always think they're smarter than everyone else, think they can win. He'll come with a plan to take us all out and recover the drive before anything releases. Then we better have a plan too, Crowley said. They spent the next 18 hours preparing. Brennan acquired weapons. Nothing fancy, handguns. One rifle for Sarah, not her father's Remington, which was still in Montana, but a good Accuracy International that would do the job. Sullivan scouted Arlington, mapped the terrain, identified positions, fields of fire, escape routes. Ferguson prepared medical supplies, enough to treat gunshot wounds, because there would be gunshot wounds. Crowley rigged cameras, tiny, wireless, hidden, placed strategically around Ghost's grave. Everything would be recorded. Everything would be broadcast live to Hayes's encrypted server. Hayes coordinated the technical side, set up the live stream, tested the connection, made sure that when Ashford spoke, the world would hear. And Sarah sat alone in the motel room, cleaning the Accuracy International, and thought about her father.
Remembered him teaching her to shoot, to track, to survive. Remembered his laugh, his hands, rough and calloused, guiding her grip on the rifle.
Remembered the last time she saw him. March 2014. He was deploying. Said it would be quick. Said he'd be home in 2 weeks. He'd hugged her. Said, "I love you, Lily." Used her childhood nickname. She'd said it back. And then he was gone. She'd been 16, old enough to understand war, young enough to believe her father was invincible. The call came 3 days later. KIA, Syria. Classified mission. Heroic sacrifice. They'd given her a flag, a medal, a casket, with no body in it, because they said there wasn't enough left to send home. She'd believed it all. For 10 years, she'd believed it. Now she knew the truth. And tomorrow, everyone else would, too. Sarah finished cleaning the rifle, loaded the magazine, chambered a round. Tomorrow night, she'd stand at her father's grave, and she'd make his killer pay. The day crawled past like broken glass. Sarah spent it in motion, unable to sit still, checking equipment, running scenarios, doing anything to keep her mind from calculating the odds. 5 of them against however many contractors Ashford would bring. On ground, he'd have time to scout. Against a man who'd been orchestrating murders for 20 years. The math wasn't good. But math hadn't stopped her father. By sunset, they were loaded in 2 vehicles, Brennan's truck and a rental SUV. The drive from Phoenix to Arlington would take most of the night. Hayes wanted them in position early, before Ashford could set his own trap. "We go in at 2200, Brennan said, checking his watch. 2 hours before the meet. Sullivan and I will establish overwatch positions. Ferguson sets up the medical station. Crowley confirms all cameras are live. Hayes runs tech from the vehicle. Sarah." He paused. "You'll be at the grave. The bait." "I know." "Your father was bait once," Sullivan said from the back seat. "Mosul, Divi Tukstoshi Pietz." Intel said there was a high-value target in the city. Ghost walked through the market square in broad daylight, knowing every insurgent within miles would take a shot at him. When they did, we lit them up from 6 different positions. "Did it work?" Sarah asked. "We got the HVT. Lost 2 teammates doing it. Ghost took shrapnel in his leg, walked with a limp for 6 months. Sullivan met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Point is, being bait means you get shot at. Question is whether the plan's worth dying for. My father thought it was. Your father was the bravest son of a bitch I ever knew. Also the craziest. They drove through the night, switching drivers every 2 hours. Ferguson slept in shifts. Hayes didn't sleep at all. The cancer kept him awake more than it let him rest. He worked on his laptop, obsessively checking the dead man's switch, making sure the insurance policy was solid. "If we don't make it," he said quietly to Sarah during her driving shift, "everything releases automatically. Financial records, testimony, the helmet cam footage of Ghost's execution, everything. We'll make it." "You sound sure." "I sound like my father." Sarah glanced at him. "He taught me that doubt gets you killed. Commit to the mission. Execute. Adjust if needed, but never doubt." Hayes smiled sadly. "He told me the same thing once. I didn't listen. Doubted the intelligence on Operation Sandstorm. Almost called it off. Ghost convinced me it was solid." He coughed, a wet rattle. "Turned out I was right to doubt. Would have saved his life if I'd listened to my gut." "You couldn't have known." "I should have. I was his CO, his friend.
I should have protected him. You're protecting him now, Sarah said, by finishing this. Hayes was quiet for a long time. Then, I've been thinking about what happens after. If we expose Ashford's network. If we burn it all down.
What about it?
Carver was right about one thing. This is bigger than one man. Ashford's network has tentacles everywhere. Defense contractors, Pentagon, Congress, even some federal judges. When we expose it, a lot of people go down. Important people. Connected people. Good. Is it? Hayes turned to look at her. What comes next? Congressional investigations that drag on for years? Show trials? Meanwhile, defense programs get canceled. Jobs disappear. Enemies see America tearing itself apart and get bold. There are consequences to burning down the house, Sarah. There are consequences to letting it stand, Sarah replied. How many people has Ashford's network gotten killed? How many weapons have they sold to our enemies? How many soldiers died because someone wanted a bigger profit margin? I'm not defending them. I'm just saying, your father believed in the system, believed that if he exposed the corruption, the system would correct itself. He was wrong.
The system protected the corruption. So what makes you think this time will be different? Sarah thought about that, about her father, hands raised, surrendering to the man he'd trusted, about the 10 years of lies, about Carver on the phone, ordering them to stand down, to let the traitors win. Maybe it won't be different, she admitted. Maybe we expose Ashford and nothing changes. Maybe the network just finds new faces. Maybe we die for nothing. Then why do it? Because my father did. Because he thought it was worth fighting for. Because some things matter more than survival. Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. You said you're dying anyway. 6 months, maybe less. What do you want those last months to mean? Hayes smiled. Your father asked me the same question once. Different context. I'd just gotten the cancer diagnosis. Told Ghost I was going to retire, spend my last days on a beach somewhere. He said that was fine. But he also said, the measure of a man isn't how he lives, it's what he leaves behind. What did you say? I said, I didn't want to leave behind grief and regrets. So I started investigating, quietly, looking into the inconsistencies in his death report, following the money, building the case. Hayes coughed again. Took 10 years, but here we are. Here we are, Sarah echoed. They reached Arlington at 2100, an hour early. Brennan's contact met them at a service gate, an older man in cemetery security uniform, weathered face that had seen too many funerals. You've got until 0600, he said, handing Brennan a key. After that, day shift arrives and I can't help you. This'll be done long before then, Brennan replied, one way or another. They drove through the cemetery in darkness, headlights off, using night vision. Row upon row of white headstones stretched into the shadows, silent witnesses to America's wars. Ghost Kincaid's marker was in Section 60, the section for Iraq and Afghanistan casualties. Sarah had been here once, for the funeral. Remembered the flag ceremony, the volleys, the bugler playing taps while she stood there, 16 years old, trying not to cry. She'd failed. But she was older now, harder. And tonight she wouldn't cry. Tonight she'd make his killer confess. They parked 200 yards away, moved on foot. Sullivan and Brennan split off, heading for elevated positions with clear sightlines to the grave. Ferguson set up behind a maintenance building, close enough to provide aid, far enough to stay out of the initial shooting. Crowley activated the cameras. Tiny units, hidden in trees, mounted on headstones, even buried in the ground.
12 angles, all feeding to Hayes's laptop. We're live, Hayes confirmed from the vehicle. Audio's clean, video's clean. Everything Ashford says will be recorded and transmitted in real time. Sarah stood at her father's grave.
Captain Jackson Kincaid, U.S. Navy SEAL, 1978 to 2014. For valor and honor. Simple. Clean. A lie. He hadn't died with valor and honor. He'd died on his knees, betrayed by someone he'd trusted. But tonight, that changed. Sarah set up her rifle. Accuracy International, .308 caliber. Range, 600 yards effective. More than enough for this engagement. She settled behind it, waiting. Her phone buzzed. Ashford, I'm here. Are you? Sarah texted back. At my father's grave, where he died because of you. Ashford, where he died because he was stupid. Don't make the same mistake. Headlights appeared in the distance. 3 vehicles, black SUVs, moving slowly through the cemetery. Contact, Sullivan's voice over the radio. 3 vehicles, counting 12 personnel, all armed. Copy, Brennan replied. Sarah, you seeing this? I see it. The SUVs stopped 50 yards from Ghost's grave. Doors opened. Men emerged. Tactical gear. Rifles. Professional contractors moving with military precision. And in the center, protected by 8 bodyguards, Colonel Vincent Ashford stepped into the moonlight. 62 years old, silver hair, distinguished. He looked like someone's grandfather, like a man who'd spent his life serving his country, not like a murderer. Ashford walked forward, flanked by 2 bodyguards, stopped 30 feet from Sarah. Miss Kincaid, he said. His voice was cultured, calm. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which. I'm my father's daughter. Yes, I can see that. Ashford smiled slightly. He stood exactly like you're standing now. Same defiance, same certainty that he was right and the world was wrong. It's genetic, apparently. Sarah's finger moved near the trigger. 1 shot, center mass. This could be over. But she needed the confession, needed him to admit everything. You killed him, she said. I killed a threat to national security. You murdered an unarmed man. I eliminated someone who was about to destroy 20 years of carefully constructed strategic relationships. Ashford's tone was matter-of-fact. Your father discovered my operation, found evidence that I'd been facilitating controlled weapons sales to create sustainable conflict. He was going to expose it, ruin everything. I couldn't allow that. So you shot him. So I made a hard choice. Ashford stepped closer. Your father was a good man. The best, actually. But he was naive. He believed in absolute morality, right and wrong, black and white. The real world doesn't work that way, Miss Kincaid. The real world requires compromise, sacrifice. Sometimes you have to let the lesser evil flourish so you can prevent the greater evil. There's nothing lesser about selling weapons to terrorists. I sold weapons to create enemies we could defeat, controlled threats, manageable conflicts. Do you know what happened after the Cold War ended? Defense spending dropped 40%. 300,000 jobs lost. Communities devastated. Entire regions economically destroyed. Ashford's voice took on a passionate edge. I saw what that did to America, saw the cost of peace. So I created a solution. I created sustainable conflict. Enemies we could fight without risking total war. Jobs for defense workers. Purpose for our military.
strength for our nation. You got people killed. I kept America strong. No hesitation, no remorse. Every weapon I sold, every conflict I helped facilitate, it kept the machine running, kept us prepared, kept us dominant. I'm a patriot, Miss Kincaid. Everything I did was for this country. You did it for money. Sarah's voice was ice. $2.8 billion over 20 years. That's not patriotism. That's greed. Ashford laughed. You think I kept that money? Half of it went to funding black operations that Congress wouldn't authorize. Operations that kept America safe. The other half was distributed through the network. Contractors, officials, officers who understood what needed to be done. I personally profited maybe 5%. Enough to live comfortably. Not enough to make me rich. You're still a traitor. I'm a realist. Ashford's smile faded. And you're an idealist, just like your father. You know what happened to him. He died fighting for what was right. He died accomplishing nothing. I buried the evidence, classified the helmet cam footage, filed a report that made him a hero, gave you and your grandfather something to be proud of. Ashford's voice hardened. I even let you live. Could have killed you 10 years ago, killed your grandfather, eliminated the whole bloodline. But I thought, what's the threat? A 16-year-old girl? An old man? They'll grieve and move on. You thought wrong.
Clearly. Ashford glanced at the grave marker. Your father said something similar, right before I shot him. He said, "You won't get away with this. The truth always comes out." But I did get away with it, for 10 years. And I'll get away with killing you too. Sarah's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. You just confessed to everything. You know that, right? Ashford's smile returned. To whom? There's no one here but us. And my men. And in about 30 seconds, you'll all be dead. So your recording, your evidence, your righteous crusade, it dies with you. He raised his hand. 12 contractors raised their weapons. Last chance, Ashford said. Give me the drive. Walk away. Live. My father made a choice, Sarah said. Walk away or fight. He chose to fight. So do I. Then you're as stupid as he was. Ashford dropped his hand. The contractors opened fire. Sarah had already moved. She'd been counting. 12 hostiles. Predictable positions. They'd arranged themselves in a semicircle, thinking they had her boxed in. They were wrong. She rolled left, came up behind Ghost's headstone, solid marble, thick enough to stop rifle rounds. Incoming fire chipped the stone. Ricochets whined into the darkness. Sullivan's rifle cracked from 600 yards out. One contractor dropped. Brennan opened up from the opposite angle. Controlled bursts. 2 more down. The contractors scattered, looking for cover among the headstones, but they were exposed, fighting in an open field against opponents in elevated positions. Bad tactics. Fatal tactics. Sarah tracked targets through her scope, found one trying to flank Sullivan's position, adjusted for wind, fired. The contractor went down. Ashford was moving, pulling back toward his vehicles, bodyguards surrounding him. He was shouting orders, coordinating his remaining men. Sarah shifted aim, found Ashford in her scope, center mass, easy shot. Her finger touched the trigger, then stopped. Not yet. The confession was recorded, broadcast, but she needed more. Needed to know the full extent of the network. She keyed her radio. Brennan, can you disable those vehicles? On it.
Brennan put 3 rounds into the first SUV's engine block. It died, smoke pouring from the hood. He shifted to the second vehicle. Same result. Ashford's escape routes were gone. The firefight continued. Contractors trying to advance, getting cut down by precision fire from Sullivan and Brennan. Sarah stayed behind her father's headstone, picking targets, making every shot count. 5 minutes in, 8 contractors were down. The remaining 4 had gone to ground, pinned down, unable to move without exposing themselves. Ashford was trapped behind the disabled SUVs. Bodyguards crouched around him. "Cease fire!" he shouted. "Cease fire!" The shooting stopped. Silence settled over the cemetery, broken only by the moans of wounded contractors and the tick of cooling engines. Ashford stood slowly, hands raised. "I surrender!" he called out. "Don't shoot! I surrender!" Sarah emerged from behind the headstone, rifle up, aimed at Ashford's chest. "On your knees," she ordered. Ashford hesitated, then complied. His bodyguards looked uncertain. "Tell your men to put down their weapons," Sarah said. "Do it," Ashford ordered. "Put them down." One by one, the bodyguards disarmed, hands on their heads. Brennan and Sullivan moved in from their positions. Ferguson emerged from the medical station. They zip-tied the contractors, secured the scene. Sarah walked toward Ashford, rifle never wavering. He looked up at her, and she saw it in his eyes. Not fear, not remorse, calculation. He was still planning, still thinking he could win. "You're finished," Sarah said. "Am I?" Ashford smiled. "You think you've won? You've exposed nothing. The network is bigger than me, deeper than you can imagine. Take me down, and 3 others rise to replace me."
The system protects itself, Miss Kincaid. It always has.
"Then I'll burn down the system." "With what? Your recording? Your evidence?" "I have friends in the Justice Department, in the FBI, in Congress. They'll bury this, classify it, make it disappear, just like they did with your father." "Not this time." Sarah pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. "This conversation, it's been streaming live to every major news organization, to social media, to encrypted servers in 12 countries. Millions of people are watching right now, watching you confess, watching you order my execution, watching you admit to treason." Ashford's face went pale. "No," he breathed. "You couldn't have. Hayes set it up. Every word you said, every confession, it's out there, and there's no taking it back." For the first time, Sarah saw real fear in Ashford's eyes. "You've destroyed everything," he whispered. "Good." Hayes' voice crackled over the radio. "Sarah, we've got a problem. Multiple vehicles approaching. Law enforcement, FBI. They're converging on your position."
Sarah looked at Brennan. "How long?"
5 minutes, maybe less."
Ashford started laughing, broken, desperate.
"You think the FBI will save you? I own half of them. The other half will bury you to protect the Bureau's reputation. You're done, Sarah Kincaid, just like your father."
Sarah knelt down, bringing herself eye level with Ashford. "My father died believing in justice, believing that good people would do the right thing when shown the truth. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe the system is too corrupt, too broken." She paused. "But he also believed that even if you can't change the system, you can make the bastards pay for what they've done. And I just did that. The whole world knows what you are, what you did. You can't hide anymore, can't classify it, can't bury it. Your name is poison, your network is exposed, and even if you walk free, you'll never have power again." She stood.
"That's enough." Headlights flooded the cemetery. Vehicles screeching to a halt. Doors slamming.
voices shouting. FBI, put down your weapons. Sarah lowered her rifle, set it on the ground, raised her hands. Brennan and Sullivan did the same. Federal agents swarmed the scene. Sarah was pushed to her knees, hands zip-tied behind her back. Through the chaos, she saw one agent approaching, mid-50s, FBI credentials. Special Agent Maxwell Drake. He looked at Ashford, then at Sarah, then at the carnage spread across Arlington National Cemetery. "Someone want to explain what the hell happened here?" "I do," Hayes said, stepping forward. He looked terrible, pale, sweating, barely standing. But his voice was steady. "My name is Commander Paxton Hayes, U.S. Navy Intelligence. I've been investigating Colonel Vincent Ashford for the illegal sale of weapons technology to hostile forces. Miss Kincaid was assisting me. Colonel Ashford attempted to kill us to protect his network. We defended ourselves." Drake studied Hayes. "You have proof of these allegations?" Hayes handed him a flash drive. Financial records, transaction logs, testimony, and a live stream confession that's currently being watched by approximately 8 million people and counting. Drake's eyes widened. 8 million? The internet moves fast when you're exposing a Pentagon colonel for treason. Drake turned to his team. Someone confirmed that. An agent pulled out a tablet, typed frantically. His face went pale. "Sir, it's trending. #1 worldwide. The hashtag is #AshfordConfession. Every major news outlet is running it. It's everywhere." Drake looked at Ashford. "Colonel Vincent Ashford, you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, murder, and about 50 other charges I'll think of on the way to the field office." He nodded to his agents. "Read him his rights. Get him out of here." As they hauled Ashford to his feet, he looked back at Sarah. "This isn't over," he said. "The network is finished," Drake interrupted. "We've been building a case against you for 18 months. Couldn't move without proof. Now we have it. Thanks to these people, we can dismantle your entire operation." Ashford's last expression before they shoved him into a vehicle was pure hatred. Sarah watched him disappear, felt the weight of 10 years lift slightly. Drake approached her. "We need to take you in, process you, get statements." "Am I under arrest?" "That depends on a lot of factors. Breaking into Triton Defense, the firefight here, the body count." He paused. "But given that you just exposed the biggest defense corruption scandal in American history, I'm inclined to be generous. Let's call it protective custody." They cut her zip ties, helped her to her feet. Hayes collapsed. Ferguson was there immediately, checking vitals. "He needs a hospital, now." "Get him in my vehicle," Drake ordered. "We'll escort you to Walter Reed." As they loaded Hayes onto a stretcher, he grabbed Sarah's hand. "We did it," he whispered. "We finished it." "You finished it," Sarah replied. "My father would be proud." Hayes smiled. "Tell him I said hello. I'll be seeing him soon." "Not yet, you won't. You still have to testify." "Already recorded my testimony. It's in the evidence package." Hayes coughed, blood on his lips. "I'm done, Sarah. The cancer. I'm done." "Commander, it's okay. I got to make it right. Got to give Ghost the justice he deserved. That's enough." He squeezed her hand. "You're going to be fine. You're stronger than your father ever was. Smarter, too. The world needs people like you." They loaded him into the ambulance. Sarah never saw him alive again. 3 months later, the congressional hearing room was packed. Cameras, reporters, spectators, the Senate Intelligence Committee sitting at their elevated bench like judges at a trial.
which, in a way, they were.
Sarah sat at the witness table, hand raised, taking the oath.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
The chairman, a 70-year-old senator from Texas, leaned forward.
Miss Kincaid, in your own words, please tell this committee what happened to your father.
Sarah took a breath, then told them everything. Operation Sandstorm, the bioweapons, the betrayal, Ashford's network, the 20-year conspiracy, her investigation, the firefight at Arlington, all of it. She spoke for 3 hours. When she finished, the room was silent. The chairman stood, slowly, with visible effort. Then he saluted. One by one, the other senators rose, saluted. A standing ovation in a congressional hearing. Unprecedented. Miss Kincaid, the chairman said, his voice rough with emotion, your father was a hero, the kind this nation produces too rarely. And you've proven that heroism is inherited. This committee thanks you for your service, for your courage, for refusing to let justice die. The investigation consumed Washington. Ashford's network was larger than anyone had imagined. 47 arrests, 3 senators, 2 Pentagon generals, 12 defense contractor CEOs. The FBI worked around the clock, following the money, building cases. The financial impact was staggering. $2.8 billion in illegal arms sales, weapons that had ended up everywhere. ISIS, Hezbollah, Russian intelligence, Chinese military procurement, all sold by Americans to line their own pockets. The trials would take years, but Ashford's trial was fast-tracked. The evidence was overwhelming. His confession was on tape, seen by millions. The jury took 40 minutes to convict. The judge gave him life without parole. Sarah watched from the gallery as they led him away in chains. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her existence. He was nothing now, a name in history books, a cautionary tale. Ghost Kincaid had been avenged.